All right, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tracking down an invisible enemy, one that is fundamentally threatening our modern digital infrastructure. We spend so much time worrying about hackers breaking down our digital front doors, right? But what happens when the call is coming from inside the house? We are decoding the poisoned pipe of AI and software supply chain attacks. It's a fascinating and, honestly, a slightly terrifying shift in exactly how cyber warfare is being waged today.
So think about this for a second. What happens when the tools you trust, the literal building blocks of your software, turn around and attack you? It sounds like the plot of a tech thriller, I know, but it is our current reality. Attackers have basically realized that going head-to-head with a Fortune 500 company's firewall, well, that's just hard work. But compromising a small, trusted vendor that the Fortune 500 company already uses, now that is a master key to the kingdom.
Think of a traditional breach, like attackers trying to smash their way through a massive brick firewall. It's loud, it's difficult, and it almost always sets off alarms. But a supply chain hack? That is what we call a poisoned pipe. Instead of breaking in, the attacker quietly poisons the well upstream. They infect a normal software update or an open source library. So when you download that trusted update, you are literally inviting the attacker right past your own defenses. It's not a front door attack, it's a backdoor plumbing exploit.
Which brings us to Section 1, Anatomy of an Attack, the evolution of the hack. Just notice the chronological escalation here. It all really started making global headlines back in 2020 with the SolarWinds attack. Hackers compromised a trusted network management tool and instantly gained access to 18,000 government entities and corporations. Fast forward to 2023, and the MOVEit and 3CX hacks showed attackers pivoting to target secure file transfers and software builds for massive data theft. But the escalation didn't stop there. By 2026, we hit the Light LLM incident, where attackers moved way beyond traditional software and went straight for the AI infrastructure. The pipe didn't just get poisoned, the poison actually got smarter.
Let's look a little closer at that 2026 Light LLM incident, because it's a perfect example. In April 2026, a hacking group called Team PCP made this surgical, almost completely invisible modification to a wildly popular open source library called Light LLM. Developers everywhere use this library to connect their apps to AI services like OpenAI, Anthropic, and Meta. Well, Team PCP planted code that silently harvested those AI API keys. The result? A $10 billion AI startup named Mercor was breached, losing 4 terabytes of proprietary AI data, source code, and training videos. The crazy part? The attackers didn't attack Mercor directly. No, they poisoned the library that Mercor trusted.
And there is this materially dangerous illusion in the tech world right now. As the saying goes, the AI supply chain is the new SaaS supply chain, and honestly, nobody is treating it that way. We just assume that because an open source AI library is widely used and reviewed by the community, it's inherently safe. But Little LLM proved that a malicious update can be published, distributed, and downloaded millions of times before any review process ever catches it.
So let's get into Section 2, the Shadow AI Crisis.
If supply chain attacks are the fire, then unmonitored AI is absolutely the gasoline being poured directly onto it. According to the latest IBM Cost of a Data Breach report, the scale of this is just staggering. Everyday employees are bringing their own AI tools into the workplace to speed up their workflows. They're sharing usernames, passwords, and highly sensitive company data with these AI assistants, all without IT approval. This is what we call shadow AI, and it's basically creating thousands of invisible backdoors straight into corporate networks. Just look at the shift in how breaches actually happen today. 30% of all data breaches now involve a third party. Think about that. That is a 100% increase, meaning third-party breaches have literally doubled year over year. The trust you place in your vendors and your software updates has been weaponized into one of your biggest vulnerabilities.
And this skyrocketing vulnerability, well, it's driven by an unbelievable 1,300% explosion in malicious threats found hiding in open source repositories just between 2020 and 2023. Attackers know that developers rely on these open source building blocks to do their jobs. So why write a virus from scratch to attack one single company when you can just hide malware in a popular open source package and infect thousands of companies instantly?
Once that poisoned code actually gets inside, the realities are pretty grim. 60% of AI-related hacks lead directly to data compromise. And when we look at broader software supply chain attacks, an incredible 70% of organizations suffer significant operational disruption. Even zooming in on just AI hacks, 31% cause immediate infrastructure disruption. And yet, despite all of this, 83% of organizations lack even basic technical controls to prevent their confidential data from being exposed to these AI tools. They are quite literally flying blind. Which brings us to Section 3, the financial fallout.
Because when operations halt and your data leaks, the financial hammer drops, and it drops hard. $53.2 billion. That is the staggering projected global annual cost of supply chain attacks by the year 2025. It is a massive, gaping drain on the global economy, and it's driven entirely by the exponential network effects of these compromises.
Zooming in a bit closer to home, $10.22 million is the record-breaking average cost of a data breach in the United States right now. And remember, breaches that originate from the supply chain are uniquely damaging. They take, on average, 267 days to identify and contain. That is over 3/4 of a year, where attackers are just chilling inside your systems, driving up that cost every single day. And that unmonitored shadow AI we talked about, that adds a very hefty premium to the total, $670,000. That is known as the Shadow AI Premium. If your organization suffers a breach and unmonitored shadow AI happens to be involved, it costs you, on average, $670,000 more than a standard breach. Why? Well, because you can't easily track what sensitive data was shared, which makes containment and compliance an absolute nightmare. And finally, 11%. This is the massive average annual revenue impact reported by companies following the SolarWinds attack. A supply chain breach doesn't just hit your IT budget, it rips right into the core value and the revenue-generating capability of the entire enterprise.
So let's move to Section 4, securing the supply chain, from paranoia to empowerment.
How do we actually move from paranoia to empowerment? It starts with total transparency. And in this world, that means an SBOM, a software bill of materials. Think of it exactly like the ingredients list on the back of a cereal box. But for your software, it is a highly detailed inventory of every single component and open source library inside your application. When a new vulnerability is announced on the news, if you have an SBOM, you don't spend weeks guessing if you're exposed. You just check your ingredients list and you know instantly. Total transparency is just non-negotiable at this point. So, the defensive playbook really comes down to these 3 definitive steps. Step 1. Generate and ingest those SBOMs for every single build. You simply cannot secure what you cannot see. Step 2. Enforce a zero-trust architecture. The motto is, never trust, always verify. You limit access privileges so that even if a component gets poisoned, the blast radius is contained. And step 3, implement Cyber Supply Chain Risk Management, or CSCRM. This means finally making supply chain security a board-level priority with rigorous ongoing vetting of all your third-party vendors. Now, in an incredible, almost ironic twist, while unmonitored AI massively expands your attack surface, deploying AI defensively is actually your greatest weapon here. Extensive AI use in your security operations saves an average of $1.9 million per breach, and it reduces your detection time by a massive 80 days. AI can analyze thousands of SBOMs and code repositories at a speed that humans simply cannot match. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly vital question to think about. Do you know exactly what is in your AI pipeline today? Every external library, every tool, every piece of shadow AI that your employees might be using right now? Because the attackers are counting on the fact that you don't. The poisoned pipe relies entirely on your blind trust. So it is time to replace that trust with visibility, verification, and resilience. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly encourage you to go audit those invisible vulnerabilities today.